Yo, what's cracking, folks? Welcome to episode number 23 of The Painter and the Pixie.
Yes, 23.
23.
Awesome.
I know, man.
So
We're
cool.
cruising right along.
Love it.
I am your host, Jeremy Vassar, and this is your other host, Serina Vassar, my
Hi,
lovely
everybody.
wife. And so in this episode of the podcast, we are talking about running.
Yeah. I'm kind of experimenting with a new thing.
Yes, Serina is dabbling in the world of running and
am.
kind of just getting started, and I am, shall we say, slightly more experienced.
Yeah, a little bit. We talk about the deets. in the show.
We go through all of that. But yeah, just kind of talking about on-ramping, how to do it in a healthy way, and
Enjoying yourself.
where Serena's at with it and kind of where she wants to go, and where I'm with my own running experience and what I'm doing with that. So
Yeah, it's a fun episode.
yeah, good stuff all around. So without further ado, please enjoy episode number 23 of The Painter and the Pixie.
This is only the beginning.
All right, ready?
Ready?
What you're going to hear about today is nothing short of a miracle.
Well, I don't believe it.
Let's find out. Ready, set, go.
Yo, what's up, girl? How you doing?
Hi, how are you, Jeremy? I'm good.
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm sorry. You have a scotch of a headache right
yeah,
now.
a little bit.
So
it's all right.
she's soldiering on, folks, for the sake of the show. So today we're actually going to be talking about running, and
It's gonna be fun.
you started. You went on your first official run
Yeah,
yesterday.
I did.
So very, very proud of you for trying, or not for trying, but for actually
For
doing
doing.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did it in Vibrams, too.
Yeah, Vibram Five Fingers, which we will get all into that as far
Yeah.
as what's going on.
Yeah, you're kind of like the expert here of the two of us, anyway.
Yeah, I'm definitely not an
Mr.
expert.
Ultra
in-
Marathon Runner.
Well, we'll talk about that too. Yeah, so I've had a lot of experience with people like you, particularly, that have not done a lot of athletics,
Yeah.
and then you wanted to get into something, and I kind of just, because I've tried a lot of different stuff. I've done a lot of fight training and Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling and boxing and weightlifting and strength and conditioning. I've done yoga. I've done all these stuff, paddleboarding, hockey. I've tried a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And, rock climbing, strongman lifting, all kinds of stuff. And then because of that, you kind of get the flavor of each
Yeah.
of them and what type of people gravitate to certain
That's
things.
true. Hey, that's a good point.
And a lot of it has to do with your mentality. Some of it's actually how crazy you are. There's a certain amount of, jiu-jitsu has a very particular type of nerd that does really well in it. Same with Muay Thai. Probably the nerdiest people that I know of are that's a lot of people think they're a bunch of goons, but a lot of times goons don't do well.
Right.
Because it's very cerebral,
I see.
particularly jiu-jitsu. But it's a lot of high level problem solving. But anyway, running, I'll just cover my history with
Yeah.
it briefly and how I got started. I think I've told you this before, but I was a fairly husky individual when I was from elementary school and then to 8th grade. Chubby little fella. I was 190 pounds in 7th grade, which is, I was not as tall as I am now. It was not a good look.
Yeah.
And then I remember I was hanging out with my friends and my brother's friends, and I just decided I'm gonna change this. It was
Do something about it. Do
summer
something different.
summer of of 8th grade. So I started running, and I started running a lap around our neighborhood, and it was 0.4 miles.
All right. So
And,
almost half a mile.
Yeah, it's the exact same loop that you ran.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And I ran it, and then I just started adding a loop, and I just kept adding, and then I got up to 2 miles, so it was
5 loops.
5 loops around there, and I would time myself, try and get my times better and better, and I was running that almost every night
Wow.
for 3 or 4 months,
Dude, all summer.
all summer, and I dropped 20 pounds in a summer.
Wow.
Which cracks me up about this story is that my mom's like, "Oh, you just had a growth spurt." I'm like, no, I ran it's okay to be like, no, it's because I ran 10, 12 miles a week, every day.
You did something totally different.
I did
and
something.
You started becoming more aware, too, of what you're eating. So you weren't just eating sleeves of Oreos. So it's like, okay, I'll have my 2.
I remember I would run and then have 2 Oreos after I ran.
That's your treat, your reward.
Which I wouldn't recommend really as like a prescriptive measure. But anyway, I have
it helped you.
I have a fondness for running because it really helped me out. It also like balanced my brain out a lot. And then from that point forward, I started running more and more and more. And, what was super annoying is that in grade school, we had to run the mile. And for a husky fella, running the mile day is a shitty day, man. And you're just like...
Yeah, it's like really difficult.
Yeah, it's bad. So by the time I got good at running like the mile, we stopped doing it. I was like, come on, man. And then one winter I ran winter track for my high school.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And we did a meet and all of that. What was dumb about that is I really should have been doing like long distance because by that point I was doing much further distance. I wasn't like, I've never been not an explosive athlete. And then, with running in general, you can kind of find your, like I was telling you, there's a lot of different types of running.
Yes.
So you kind of find what really fits your, your area, your lifestyle, kind of your mentality.
But kind of your personality.
And your personality, yeah. And that's what I mean by kind of mentality. So for me, I really liked, as I began running more, I remember I told you I got up to 2 miles around here, and then it gets boring doing the 0.4
over and over
again. So I ended up running. What did I do? Oh, I went over to Peace Valley Park, and I did the whole loop there, which was 6 miles.
6 miles.
Technically,
so you went from 2 to 6.
Yeah, but I'd been doing 2 a lot.
Still, I think it's a pretty good jump.
So, hold on real quick.
So you ran the loop at Peace Valley.
Yeah. Slight technical issue. We're back. So I ran, and I remember I was so pumped that I got all the way around and felt good. So then that kind of became my standard run, was a 6 mile.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And they've got some hills.
Loop. Oh yeah. It was super fun because, I liked the simplicity of, I would head out and I'm just going to run around the lake, and you would do it, and the scenery changed, all the time. So, and you didn't have to like keep doing the same loop, which gets super boring.
Well, it was the same loop.
But like, okay, so instead of running the same small loop 5 times, you just ran one loop once.
I see. I got you.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
okay.
Yeah. And then I never really got to the point where I wanted to do like a marathon or anything. And it was just, what's interesting, I guess, I kind of have that, I really like just training. I don't really care about competition that much. That's just how I've always been. Even with like jiu-jitsu, I only competed in one tournament, and like I sparred a shit ton in Muay Thai and roll all the time in jiu-jitsu, but I just don't really care about the
actual competition. You like training for it.
Yeah, I like the training and being really proficient, but and running was kind of like my thing. That was like it was very for anybody that runs a lot, it's kind of like your jam. Like it's very like personal. Like for me, it meant a lot to me, like being able to do that. And then I got away from it when I did all the fight training. I was doing a lot of strength and conditioning, but it was always something I kind of came back to. And then when I got into CrossFit, there's actually a fair amount of running in CrossFit.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I was doing that, and then I had my back exploded.
That was not good.
I came back to, when I came back from surgery, I actually got into cycling, which a lot of people are in the endurance community do a lot of cycling and running and swimming. And I really tried to kind of like get more into cycling, but it takes so long to get a decent workout with that. And I just didn't enjoy it. I thought it was too dangerous for the payoff. I totally understand people that enjoy it. I think it's a great communal thing. A lot of like corporate folks like doing it. It's a kind of a communal thing. But anyway, I came back to running. And then once I felt like my back wasn't going to implode on me, I actually signed up. I was actually on a ride with one of my buddies, and he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing this race. And then I went home and signed up, screen captured.
I remember that.
And it was a ultra marathon in upstate New York around the Finger Lakes. And that's when I started doing trail running. And I've done that up at Trexler, I think it's the nature preserve up there, which is super nice, crazy amount of elevation change.
Yeah, seriously.
So that's when I got into like longer distance, even more than I was doing before.
Right, because you would go. I mean, when you were training for this ultra, you'd run for 5 hours on a Saturday.
Yeah, so I would go run between 12 and 22 miles.
Yeah.
In the morning. So, and that was
Before doing
trail.
anything.
So it was a lot of like 2,000 feet of gain, 2,000 feet of descent, like pretty
Yeah.
significant ups and downs. And these were like straight. Some of it was like straight up. So,
Yeah.
but that's when I got more into
Like you're actually climbing, not just running.
But before that, I gave you the book that kind of got me really interested in ultramarathons, which is Born to Run. A lot of people may have heard of that book. And that's really that because of that book, the Vibram 5 Fingers got really popular.
Oh, interesting.
So for people that don't know about that book, it is about a tribe down in Mexico, the Tarahumara, which they are barefoot runners, and they run crazy long distances, and they basically run with these. It's like a sandal that is made from like a tire, and there's no. It's as zero drop as you can get. It's basically just protecting the sole of their feet, and that's pretty much what a Vibram 5 Finger is. It's basically a glove for your foot.
Yep.
So there's no padding. Some of the newer ones have like more kind of cleats on them for running trail and stuff, but there's very little protection, and
It's just like another layer of skin, almost like another
Correct.
layer of leather on the bottom of your foot.
Yeah. So if you're thinking, so that got really popular, like barefoot running, because when you put yourself in a really constructed shoe, you're basically putting a cast around your foot, and you have limited mobility. And then a lot of times people have really weak arches and have all kinds of issues because their foot's actually super weak.
Right.
And then, but also Vibrams did get sued because a lot of people got injured when they just put them on and started running. And that's actually,
I guess they didn't realize you have to actually train your feet to run like that. You can't just start off.
Well, if you're wearing regular shoes,
Yeah.
which you and me are kind of like hippies in this department, but like I've been wearing zero drop shoes for a long time now.
Yeah,
like
me too.
and from probably since my early 20s, I've been doing like martial arts where all that training is in bare feet. So
Yeah.
like that's when my feet really got stronger.
Yeah, and zero drop shoes means like no liftedness to it. Your heel and your toe of your feet are on the same plane.
Right. There's no deviation between the heel and the toe. So like the extreme example would be like a woman's high heel shoe, like a 6-inch heel. That means there's a 6-inch drop between the heel and the toe.
Yeah, okay.
Zero drop is there's zero.
Flat.
Yeah, flat.
Okay, thank you.
Your flats. And like Vibrams are ultimately like zero drop as well.
Right.
So yeah, but I actually ran 6 miles in my Vibrams
For the first time?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Dude,
You must have been dying.
my calves were jacked.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And so, that's why I was telling you, you read Born to Run and are going through Kelly Starrett's book, Ready to Run, which I've mentioned before on the show. You just want to be careful, start really slow if you're going to do the Vibrams. And most people will end up kind of in the middle of like minimalist is another name for it. So you've got companies like Viva Barefoot and
I think there's one called Zero.
Zero is one. And then there's,
Alta?
Alta is another good one. Nike has the Nike Freeze, and there's minimalist has gotten really popular. Now people are kind of swinging back more towards a more constructed shoe. But to give you the ends of the spectrum, in ultra running, they have there's actually guys that run them completely barefoot.
Like with nothing on their feet
Nothing
at all.
on their feet, and their feet are gnarly looking
Oh my
because
gosh, I bet.
they're like hobbit feet. They're
Yeah.
really well padded and calloused and stuff.
Gotta be.
But then there's these other shoes that I kid you not, the bottoms of them were like 4 inches of
Wow.
padding, and I don't know how dudes would run in them.
Dude.
Because the thought was like you don't want the shock coming up into your knees.
Oh,
but
so it's supposed to be shock absorbing?
Yeah, but it doesn't really work like that because
I feel like you're better off running in moon shoes. Like they used to have the If you're going with that much of a lift, I mean, seriously.
And where I landed on it is I will, I kind of have come back to running. I've had a few knee injuries from jiu-jitsu and I really enjoy it. So I ran Peace Valley for the first time in a hot minute, like last week. Felt great. Knees felt good. And, I had obviously run quite a bit leading up to that ultra,
Yeah.
and then I kind of ran myself out where I was like, yeah, I'm good for a while.
Yeah, you did take a bit of a break from that. You think because that's when we both started really moving more into Bikram.
Yes. Yeah,
Coming
yeah.
back into yoga.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really good pairing is yoga
Mm-hmm.
and running is a nice pairing because, moving back to someone like you who's just starting in running, a lot of people will say like, are nervous about being injured or, I think, I don't know. Again, it's one of those things that people get really dogmatic about, like running's the best thing ever, or whatever.
People get like that about anything that they really, really
Yeah.
enjoy and hits on, those centers for them. So, but hold on, let's take a step back for a moment. With you said, you're getting into running, but let's talk about that. You started saying at the beginning here about different personalities and types and looking for something that fits well for you when
Yeah.
you're being
Yeah.
physically active. So like you've really hit in on and honed in on jujitsu, obviously,
Right.
and running. Both of those things work really nicely for you. You always come back to those two activities.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I have done yoga for a very, very long time. Years ago, I did ballet and a little bit of figure skating,
Yeah.
but I've never done really any organized sports. I shouldn't say that. The only organized sport I ever played was badminton
There you
in college. So, not soccer, none of these things. I never found something I really enjoyed. So we talked about in a previous episode here that I'm not really doing Bikram right now.
Yep.
I still love it. I still think it's wonderful. It was just taking too much time for me. I had other priorities and things in my world that I had to choose to devote my time to rather than going to the studio every day or even 3 days a week or whatever.
Right.
So I've been trying to find something. What else can I do at home that's not going to take 3 hours, that I don't have to shower before and after, that I don't take, a lot of my time. And if any of you know me or have heard me talk, I have shit on running a whole lot. Like, I hate running. I'm never going to run. Jeremy does it, but it's totally not my cup of tea. I've said that so many times. I use you as an illustration in my office. You probably don't know this.
No.
All the time for endurance things, right? I talk about how, Jeremy, ultra marathons, and it works for him. That's great, but it's never going to be me. And now I'm like, maybe I might be probably beginning to eat my words on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
Because I decided, hey, that's a really easy thing to do. I travel a lot. I do, work with NTA, Nutritional Therapy Association, and these things. And I want to be able to do something. One, exercise Gus when he comes with me. Gus is my service dog, for those of you who might not know. Take care of myself, not take a whole lot of time. And you can run wherever you are. You can just grab a pair of shoes and go. It's very, very low barrier to entry. It's really simple. One foot in front of the other. You don't need lots of equipment. You can, I'm sure. Everything. You can just get more and more equipment.
Yeah.
But you can do it from anywhere for any length of time. You can run for 5 minutes and that's it. You don't have to be in an hour and a half long class to get through your workout for the day or to get through some movement for the day.
Right. Well, and that's why I landed on kind of recommending that for you.
Mm-hmm. You've suggested to me for years, try running. And I've always said, no. Now, I had this big fear in my head. Back from my ballet days. Now, this was years and years and years ago, where someone somewhere along the line told me, don't ever run if you want to be a good ballerina because you're going to screw up your knees.
Yeah.
So I've had this fear in my head since then, since I was like 12, that if I ever ran, it would ruin me. But you know what? I'm not a competitive ballerina. I am not anything. I need to do something. I want to do something that is easy to do, easy access.
So that is a legitimate criticism, and it's something that's kept me away from training the way that I wanted to.
The knee thing?
The knee thing, which is, here's the problem. People say that about anything that you engage with. If you say, I lift weights, they're like, oh, that's dangerous. You could hurt your back. Oh, you do. Now, there are things that are like, CrossFit's a good example of if you don't do that right, you can really hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu, holy crap.
Seriously.
Like, I mean, but is the juice worth the squeeze? It's a very high likelihood I'll experience more injuries directly related to jiu-jitsu.
Right.
I've already had I've a shit ton of injuries.
Yeah.
But it's so fun. It's so challenging.
Right.
It is. Now we'll talk just about general fitness for a second, like, and why I think running is a good fit,
Well,
and why I've come back to it
Something
myself.
say about that too.
Okay.
That's great.
If you like, I've done a lot of training and stuff, and then what I've been looking at now, I've tried, like I said before, a ton of different stuff. And then I like to come back and see, like, well, what's sustainable long term? What's something that I can move into where, like, I know I'm not going to fight professionally. I know I'm not going to, like, there's certain things, like, I'm not trying to, like, ski or do, I've tried a bunch of different stuff. So for me, like, what I have access to around here, what's something super simple? I want to maintain my fitness and stay lean, like, through the rest of my life.
Right.
Now, running, it can be unsustainable or it can be sustainable.
Yeah.
So for me, when someone says, oh, but your knees, it's like, okay, well, there has to be a way to do it that is sustainable. As humans, we've been running since the
For a
jump.
long time.
Been running a super, super long time.
Dude, reading this book, Born to Run, they're talking about how, like, people back in the day would run deer down until the deer were exhausted and their hooves would literally fall off.
You can still do that. It's called an endurance hunt, and they will chase an antelope or a deer in packs of humans on foot. And humans are bipedal, which means we're up on our 2 feet, and we have great cooling system. So our ability to go super long distance is like no other animal can do that the way that we can do that.
Yeah.
And like,
and you know what else? We have really good ability to breathe while running.
Correct.
That's what I was reading about too, is animals, virtually all animals have to take 1 breath for every stride.
yeah.
We don't have to do that.
Yeah. So it's, and I mean, with, ultra marathons have come into more popularity. I mean, there was a dude, he was on Joe Rogan a little bit ago. He ran for 100 miles. He ran 7-minute miles.
Whoa.
It's bananas.
Oh my gosh.
Stupid fast. He set the record.
Whoa.
But
Dude.
like, and then there's there's this chick, what's her name? Courtney. I can't remember her name. She ran, I think it was the Moab, but it's a 240-mile race, and she smoked everybody. The closest dude, when she finished, was 22 miles behind her.
Wow.
And she's a beast. Just
Yeah.
was absolutely flying, and she eats like beer and nachos. It's hilarious. So anyway, like, running something I always came back to.
Yeah.
It is my happy place, particularly running around Peace Valley Park, but it's also scalable, which means when we go on vacation,
Right.
we can run, like, I can run there.
We don't have to go and like pay to do Bikram classes, you know?
Right,
It's such
But
a low barrier to entry.
The concept is very easy as far as, like, put on shoes, and then decide if you want music on or whatever,
Yeah.
and then just go run. And, if you're trying to get better, you really need to look at your splits and what time you're doing and things like that, and your cadence and rhythm. So what I would say, if anyone's trying to get into running, which you are, so if you learn to run correctly and are monitoring yourself and not pushing mentally past your breaking point so that your knees explode, and that's why I gave you Born to Run and Ready to Run,
Yes.
which is Kelly's Direct, which is all the body maintenance you should be concerned with and actively doing, making sure. I'm of the opinion that, regardless of what type of shoe you're putting on, I really think developing foot strength is super important.
I totally
but I
agree
think
with you.
maintaining your mobility, so like foam rolling, using lacrosse balls on your feet, making sure your calves are nice and supple, and not cramping up or having a lot of like
knots
knots
like
in them.
I've got right here.
And then maintaining that mobility in your knee, like also doing some yoga to counteract some of like the pounding and making sure everything's staying loose, so you're maintaining range of motion. But to me it's more about keeping your feet in line. And if you see people like run, you can pick out some people that are going to have some knee issues when you watch they run like a duck.
They swoop their leg out to the side.
Their feet are
Or their
out,
feet are splayed, yeah.
or they're running like
Pigeon-toed.
pigeon-toed. Both of those are going to put really bad strains on your knees.
Yeah.
But whenever I hear, oh, you shouldn't do that because of this, it's like, well, is that because of the activity or is that because you're doing the activity poorly?
Yeah, hey, that's a really good question to ask. I like that a lot.
So,
And
because there's dumb ways to train
Yep.
in every single thing. So,
Right. I mean, any activity you could say, oh, that's dangerous because of X right?
Yeah.
There's anything you could pick out, but I like what you said about there are so many cultures of humans who've been running sustainably forever, as long as there have been people around, that it's hard to say that, oh, our feet are just not designed to run anymore. Was a very popular
Yeah, that's bullshit. So.
theory. And I just think what you said is really, really true. People do not have good foot strength anymore or flexibility because we're in shoes forever. When we're kids, don't run, right? When did you stop running last as playing a kid? Like, do you ever think that happened, right? You were running around with your friends and then one day you weren't.
Yeah.
You never did it
Yeah.
anymore.
Well,
Because you're an adult and you're not supposed to run as an adult
Yeah.
unless you're an athlete and you're running for, exercise or whatever. But we just lose. We wear shoes all day long. And we wear lifted shoes. Women often wear high-heeled shoes,
I
and
do
that's
not know
terrible
how y'all
for
get around on
your
those.
feet. I know.
'Cause they just jack up girls' feet.
I very rarely
Yeah.
wear heels anymore. Once in a while for a special occasion, if I need a picture or something where I can't wear flats, then I'll do that. But I am more and more, I'm just in flats. All my work shoes are flat. All my walk around shoes are totally flat.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to mention one thing about exercise. You said this earlier. My thought was when we had Tim and Angie on our Getting in Shape to Get in Shape episode, Tim was talking about the impact is necessary, impact of running or impact of anything that's higher impact is necessary to help build bone density. And I thought, man, I've never done any, because one of the big deterring phrases people use is that's too high impact. Don't run. Do something that's lower impact. Swim. It's much better for you. It's lower impact. Well, you know what? My whole life I've done pretty darn low impact stuff.
Yeah.
And you do need a blend. It's not, I don't think it's good to do one exclusively or the other exclusively. You do have, there's a reason, for both
Yeah.
of those factors. And that's where I said, okay, Tim said something like, if you do a lot of yoga, you should do a little bit of running or jump roping or something that
Jump rope's
helps you
great.
to build
Yeah.
that bone density. And I said, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So that was my first moment where I thought, I might seriously be considering for real running as an option. So, and then you were talking to me about it. You gave me these books, and I don't think I'm ever going to be necessarily as extreme as they are in this Born to Run book.
Yeah.
But-
Which I wouldn't recommend. So.
But I still think that there's something to that. I think it's a great way to have an easy access to doing something you really enjoy. And I was thinking about what was something you've asked me this question before when I've been trying to hone in on a particular exercise activity that I really enjoy for a long time. That's not yoga. I know I love yoga, but I wanted something else. And I was thinking about when I was a kid and I grew up in the Poconos, I ran through the woods all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Trail running. Light
Yeah.
bulb. Trail running, I think, could be a really fun thing to do. But I have no experience. I've never run ever, really.
Yeah.
I don't have any, running shoes. I wear flat shoes. So that's why I ran for the first time ever in my Vibrams, because I thought, hey, I'm starting from zero. Why not wear zero drop shoes?
Yeah. And I've told, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but I really think you'll end up with a zero drop, but like a constructed shoe.
Yeah.
Like Alta makes some good ones, and there's a couple companies, like even the Nike free runs are zero drop.
Yeah.
But you have some cushion.
Which I think is actually important
then-
if you're on pavement and stuff, because
Yeah.
that's just, what if you step on rocks or glass? That's what I'm always afraid of.
Yeah, and that's where you run into some issues with the Vibrams. Vibrams are great. Like I would do when I did hill runs and stuff in the grass. Like I would always wear Vibrams. I do all my strength and conditioning in Vibrams. I will say too, like I'm not trying to just run.
Right.
But
That's true too. That's a good point.
we talk about this with diet, like having a target-rich environment.
Yes.
If you want like healthy options, the more fit you are, the more things you do, the more opportunity you have to engage in a fun activity, like going on. So I love just knocking out that 6-mile loop. If I'm in shape enough to run, then I have access and I can do that. A lot of people that I've found that will say, "Oh, I hate running. It sucks." I'm like, well, it sucks if you suck at it.
Yeah,
There are a lot of things that suck if you suck at it.
that's true.
So if like jujitsu is not fun until you start getting proficient at it and you can start kind of battling back.
Yeah.
But like there's like probably a year, 2 years where you're just getting the shit beat out of you.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to survive. And then you gradually work your way into the fun part, which is like
cooking's not fun until you build
Right.
skills in it.
exactly
Same thing.
Exactly. So, but it's fitness is the same way, where it's
Yeah.
like, like Tim and Angie said, like you got to get in shape to get in shape, but you also have to get in shape to then have fun.
Yeah.
So when people are in that grind of like, man, my body's not used to doing this. So I just think, running something, I'm like, I really want access to this. I want to be able to do it. And I thought cycling may have filled that gap, but it takes, in my experience, about 3 hours of cycling to feel like I did something. Whereas I can get the same burn after like an hour, like a hard run.
Yeah, or even less than an hour.
Or less than that. It depends on how fast you're going, what your rhythm
Right.
is, what your cadence is.
Yeah, well, and another example too, I mean, of like the difference between cycling and running, you're putting way more output when you're running. Dude, the day you proposed to me, you cycled for the first time 40 miles.
Yeah, I think it was over 40 miles.
50 miles, was it?
It was like 44 or something.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was, and then you were fine the next day. So that's where like you already had a decent level of conditioning, so you could knock out 40 miles.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, I won't get into...
It's not the same as running 40 miles.
It's not. And also, cycling is a really horrific posture for you. You're like bent over the handlebars and neck's extended. But running also, I just want to, as you are, I'll just gear this right at you because
Yeah,
you're
go for
doing it.
I know nothing.
As
I'm
you
totally
get
willing to
deeper
learn.
into running, like right now, you just ran 0.4 miles.
Yes.
You're,
Woohoo!
you're going to start adding distance. You add distance, then you add speed, and that's going to be kind
I'm
of
sticking with 0.4 miles for the
right,
next little
right.
bit here.
I'm just saying you're that's not going to do it for very long. A sub 5-minute run ain't shit.
Yeah.
So you're going to add, and it's not really giving you access to what you want access to.
Yeah.
If you want to run around the lake or go on a nice trail run or something, half a mile's nothing.
Right.
So
But somewhere to get started.
correct. I'm just saying, as things exponentially increase,
Keep taking the next step.
what's important to maintain is like posture. So, and that you probably got a lot of that from Born to Run and then Kelly Starrett and Ready to Run.
Yeah.
We're talking about the mobility work you want to do. Personally, I think it matters more than even the shoe that you wear and what's on your foot is your posture and how you're kind of carrying yourself as you run.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel balanced? And whenever you see like a high level marathoner, high level sprinter, high level like ultra marathoner, those guys are insanely light on their feet,
Yeah.
regardless of what is actually on
Yep.
their feet.
Yep. That's true.
So
My goal here is to get good form.
Yeah.
I'm starting from scratch, so start from the big. I don't care about my speed. I don't care about how far I've run. None of that, literally, it does not matter to me at all. I want to make sure that I'm doing it in a way that's not going to screw myself up later, hurt myself, hurt my knees, hurt my ankles. I already know I've got a little bit of ankle-knee problem on my right side,
yeah,
and I'm hoping that if I run well and have good form, a good posture, it'll help.
yeah. Well, and I've actually trained. Tim talked about this before, but I've actually like trained through injuries. So
right.
when I came off back surgery, I still had a really bad hip problem, which was kind of aided in part of what led to the back surgery. But like, I was like, man, I want to do something that's going to make me fix this. So I
Yeah.
ran ultramarathon and I had to do so much mobility work to keep everything loose.
That's true.
That I actually trained through it. My legs got way stronger. I had trained through a knee injury and like, because once you start stressing the body, it starts to, respond and it's like, okay, I've got to do this. So that's been something that,
Yeah.
so anyway, coming back to running, I just think it scales. It's very like once you get good at it and you find a sustainable way to do it for yourself, like that being your distance and where you're going to run, how you're going to run, like how fast it is, like if you're getting something out of it, it can open up a lot of like, then you can have access, you can race, you can
Yeah.
go to a running club, you can do all kinds of things that are super fun. You can go on trail runs. And I think for me, it fits my pace a lot better. Like
Yeah.
I don't like hiking. I want to run the trails. I want to move through it.
Yeah.
And that's been something I enjoy, but also it's also a part of my general training regimen.
Right. It's not the only thing you're doing.
Correct.
Right. But I don't ever intend it to be the only thing I'm doing either, but it's a wonderful option. And I think it's just great for people in general to be able to run, to
Yeah.
move your body. Like if any sort of shit whatever went down, you need to be able to run.
It's very important I think, to be able to like, oh shit, and then take off.
Yeah.
Like it's very handy you want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not in shape to do that. I mean, Tim always talks about a lot of people can't get down on the ground and back up
Right.
very easily.
Right. So I
So-
just think it's a really great way to start being more well-rounded in general. And for a long time, I had heart rate problems.
Yeah.
And that was really scary to me. I was afraid for a while to do any sort of significant cardio because my heart rate would go up so high and down so low so quickly. I mean, if I could be resting at somewhere like 80 or 90 and it would go up to 167, or it would drop down to 50. So it was very scary to say, if I'm running, what's going to happen? I might pass out with all these problems. It's hello, thank you, Gus, part of your job.
Yeah.
But it's nice now to start saying, okay, I have enough stability, enough confidence that I can start training my body to not do that.
Right.
Right? To
Right.
help build up some endurance so that I can stay at a steady heart rate more easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say too, like, as far as running, well, they talk about ultramarathoners and people that run a lot. They say, like, they're always running from something. And I find that to be true, largely, because it's a really effective way to balance your brain out. People
Yeah.
talk about the runner's high, I guess I've experienced it, but it's like, so people are always trying to find equilibrium within their brain. I've talked about that before, and you kind of find your optimum level of stimulation and what really does it for you. If it's something, for me, if it's really explosive, like, there's got to be some dire physical consequences. So like jujitsu, I've got to be really focused or I'm going to get my arm ripped off.
Right. Yeah. You don't want that.
So, but like with running, what I find my mix of things is you find that the pace that pushes you, and I'm working on dropping my pace down so it's actually much faster. But I like usually just music. Occasionally, like when I was doing trail running, the pace was way lower because I had to
Yeah.
do so much, like a longer distance.
Right.
But I find that if I'm like, I've got a good playlist on and you just kind of, with the movement, you can zone out and your brain
Yeah.
gets in a really good, at least my brain gets in a really good spot, and it feels like, oh, I'm built to do this. And I always feel better when I can incorporate running kind of in my overall fitness diet, if you will. So that's like, that's something I think is, it just regulates everything. And then because you have to have constant output
Right.
for the duration of the run. So it's a different kind of cardio. I always
It
feel,
is, for sure.
it feels like I'm a much better grappler when I'm in good running shape. I feel like I've got longer stamina.
Interesting.
There's two brothers, the Diaz brothers, that are really well-known fighters that have fought in the UFC for a long time. And they do like triathlons. They've done ultra marathons, marathons. So like they're cardio freaks.
Yeah.
And they just, when they fight, they have this steady pace that just grinds people
yes.
out. And then there are other guys that hate running. They just hate it. My brother hates running. He's a much more explosive athlete than I am. But he always like hated it. Didn't mind doing like sprints and stuff like that, but
That's
just
funny.
never liked long distance. Whereas like when I started doing it, I just liked it immediately. So you kind of have different things that your body will kind of naturally fall into versus like do you like sprinting? Do you like,
Right.
what's your
What's your flavor?
yeah. And is it trail? Is it road? And that's also like what you have access to.
Yeah.
But again, it's something that balances me really nicely. And I like being able to, I could run that loop every day. Like,
Yeah,
if,
you
if
probably
I-
could. You used to. Close to that.
But yeah, we'll see. I think
And by that loop, you mean Peace Valley.
Peace Valley. But I would, as I look as things scale, I was telling you, like, I could definitely see myself. You said I compete in ultramarathons. I competed in one ultramarathon. I got a DNF at mile 40, mainly because
DNF did not finish.
I went the wrong way for several miles because the course was, in my opinion, not clearly marked.
Well, and honestly, 90% got a DNF on that race.
It wasn't 90%. It was like half.
I thought it was more than that. It was a huge amount because the next year they extended the time frame by 3 hours.
Yeah.
So you would have been totally on time, no problem, if they had given the extension, because so many people didn't get to the certain mile marker before the sun set enough or whatever it was. They had a time mark, a time frame.
Yep.
So I think you were doing better than you thought.
Yeah.
From going from literally running 6-mile loops around Lake Galena to an ultra marathon.
Well, I
crazy.
I had done others.
That's a big jump.
I was running way more than that leading up to that race.
True, but still, I just think like most people, what I think, they're like, oh yeah, I'll do a 5K. Oh yeah, I'll do a marathon, or I'll do a half marathon, and then they like, jump into doing things like ultra marathon. So you just went straight from hobby runner to ultra marathon.
Yeah, but also too, like my work capacity was really high as far as my endurance. I'm a contractor. I work all day with my body and my hands.
You train a lot
and then I train a lot. Like I was training like a maniac leading up to that too. So it's like I can have it's finding that constant level of output that is like how long you can sustain it. And that's a lot of ultra marathons, like math, but then also just mental toughness of pushing through, where you think David Goggins, who's a pretty famous fellow ultra marathoner. He's like, your brain tries to quit at like 40%. So when you want to quit, your body, you're only at 40%.
Yeah,
so,
you've got more to push.
Yeah, and if for those, I just finished a book this week by Jesse Eisler. It's I think it's called Living with a Seal. And he hired,
as in a Navy SEAL.
He hired David Goggins, who is David Goggins. I would recommend listening to his podcast with Joe Rogan. Jesse Eisler was also on Rogan this past week. But David Goggins is the Navy SEAL mentioned in that book. And if you know who that dude is, he only refers to them as SEAL in the book because it was published, I think, when he was still enlisted.
And you couldn't say his name.
And he was classified. But now it's not. And knowing that it's Goggins, it's like, that guy's a freak. So his quote is like, be uncommon amongst uncommon people. And but he's runs a lot, and he lived with this Jesse, who was a very swank Manhattan apartment, very very decent runner, but his wife is the owner of Spanx.
Oh, interesting.
So and they're doing well. So it's like the pretty wealthy guy, and then living with this SEAL who showed up with just a backpack for a 30-day stay. And man, he trained this, he pushed this dude so hard.
I bet.
It was awesome. But even that just shows like how hard you can get pushed and how much you have left in the tank.
I think humans are so capable of so much more than we think we are, especially this day and age. We live in such a cushy environment, which, like, don't get me wrong, I'm very thankful for, but that's where I say you got to push yourself in a different way. Train purposefully. And that's why I want to get better at a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's not that I never ever ran before either. I run around in the yard and these things. I just never purposefully put shoes on and said I'm running around this block.
Right. We're like, you never said I'm going on a run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but so that's where I want to have flexibility and capability. I want to be able to do things.
When I would say, like, couch it in a goal that if you're interested in that, I've done enough stuff where I'm, I think I really do. I know I'm going to come back to ultra marathons at some point.
Yep. I know so too.
It's just whether or not how I'm going to work that into my life. I have a feeling it'll probably be when I move towards retiring from contracting. But we got a little bit more to go before that happens. But I might do a marathon, like a regular marathon.
Oh, interesting. That's the first time I've heard you say that.
Earlier, but I've got to work on my speed quite a bit because my attitude that I had towards ultramarathon was like, let's see kind of what's the minimum effective dose that I could train for it and still complete it. Where now I'm looking at it like, I want to do well. I don't want to just finish. I want to do well. So there's a podcaster I listen to who's a stand-up comedian named Bert Kreischer. If anyone listens to Rogan, they'll probably know who I'm talking about. But he is... he's who the movie Van Wilder was based off of. He got Party Boy of the Year by Rolling Stone a number of years ago when he was in college. And he's like, he's pretty much an alcoholic.
Pretty much.
So he's a larger gentleman. And he and Tom Segura, who's another comedian, had like this fat shaming thing back and forth. It was hilarious. And they had a weight loss challenge and stuff, which was great. But then Bert goes like, I can run a marathon. And he's like, yeah, and I'm not even going to train for it. He's like, not in good shape. Was definitely a good athlete back in the day, but it's been a hot minute since then.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he played baseball in college and pretty good athlete.
Okay.
But anyway, but he ran the LA Marathon and it took him like 5.5 hours, which is a shit time.
Yeah.
That is not a good time. And he's like, yeah, I did it. It's like, yeah, but you did a shitty job. Like, that's nothing to brag
You may have
about.
completed it, but
Like,
it wasn't like
Yeah,
you cared.
It would be one thing if he didn't train and ran like a sub 3 hour marathon.
Right.
That would be like super impressive. You're like, oh shit, man, that's super good on you. Nice job. So I'm looking at it
What
like
is a good time to run a marathon? Like, what's competitive?
sub 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
Dr. D ran one in like 2:30,
Okay.
which
well,
is very good.
cool. Yeah,
So-
I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, and then like the Holy Grail is a sub 2 hour marathon.
Wow.
I'm not up on that right now, but I'm not even sure if someone's done that yet. There's a fella from Kenya that's been getting really close, and he may have done it. I'm not sure. I
Wow.
haven't checked in a little bit, but that it's insane. That pace is bananas.
That is crazy.
So, but yeah, if I did a marathon, I would want to be pushing close to that. But I feel like I have like a little bit of a mental advantage because I already ran 40 miles in the woods.
Right. So you're like, I know I could do that. The
For sure.
distance isn't threatening
It's
to
more
you.
it's more about
nerve-wracking.
how fast could I do it and what pace could I maintain. But I know I'd have to. My continual battle with running is the weight,
Yeah.
because like I like having muscle,
Right.
and then
But it's just harder to you when you're carrying around more muscle.
running when you're going long distance, it would there's a reason most ultramarathoners look rather spindly.
Yeah.
So but I really like Cameron Haynes, who's he's one of Rogan's best friends, the reason he does ultramarathons is because he's a bow hunter.
Yeah.
And he's like one of the best,
It's crazy.
and he's like 170 180 pounds, and he looks jacked, like he's very, very fit. But he's competitive in ultramarathons, but he still like works out his upper body. Because when you elk hunt or hunt in the mountains, you've got to, once you kill the animal, you actually have to like quarter it, and then you have to
You
haul
have
the
to
meat
carry
out
it back yourself.
on your back.
Yeah.
So you got to be strong. You can't just be spindly. You actually have to be really,
Right.
endurance all the way through your body, not just your legs.
Yeah.
So that's why he does it. And I know
Is he the guy who runs a marathon every day?
that's Cameron Haynes.
Oh
yes.
my gosh.
Yeah. Well, it's not all at once. I think he runs.
I
like,
don't care. That's still a lot.
I think he runs like 10 in the morning, like 6 at lunch, and then knocks out another like
Dude.
10, at night if he doesn't go work out or do something else.
That's crazy.
And he has like a normal 9 to 5 job, which is hilarious. He's
Yeah.
sponsored by Under Armour. He's a very, very interesting individual. So
Yeah, well, see, and that's another thing where I'm like, dude, look at what a human can do pushing themselves. Like, because his goal is he wants to be a phenomenal elk hunter and be able to get after it, take it out of the, do really well. And that's his game. He's choosing
Yeah.
to play. So that's why he's setting up his life to do what he does.
when he pushes himself because he wants to be a more than proficient hunter. Like he can get in positions that other guys wouldn't be able to because how fast he can scale a mountain.
Oh, that's true.
And he's a bow hunter,
sense.
so he's got to get real close to that animal, and he trains so that he's the most ethical hunter that he can. One shot, one kill, they're down instantly, and it's from a wildlife perspective, that animal, just to deviate into hunting for a minute, because it's one of those things where I know I'm probably going to get into bow hunting at some point, and I'm like, oh damn. Because this is another tangent. I think hearing podcasts and YouTube and stuff, particularly podcasts for me, is that I have located other people with mindsets
that's
that
true.
are similar to mine. They're as crazy or crazier than me. And then I see what they've done to balance their brain out. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I know if I try that, I'm going to lock in on that.
And you might
And
too.
then
Not necessarily crazy. You're not crazy. You're just really intense. You're a workhorse, like you said. You've got a lot of
Yeah.
capacity, a lot of place that you need to dump your mental and physical energy.
I will say that it can manifest itself as craziness if you don't get it out
True.
sometimes.
That's
So,
true. If you don't stabilize.
And just based on other people are like, oh, you're crazy. And not in like a manic way,
Yeah.
but if you don't have that, I can go kinetic. Like I need to have some kinetic outlet that
Yeah.
I'm moving and training. And when and then, if you start doing ultramarathon, people are like, oh, you're training too much. But then I listen to these guys, I'm like, I'm not training enough. Like
Yeah,
I'm not
right,
even close to.
So it's cool that you have that little pool of people you can hear about. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I would love to move because when I think about when I was doing the best, like happiest in my life. I was contracting all day and then training for 4 to 6 hours a night, 6 days a week.
It's a lot.
So it was like, but I felt great. Like, and that's what I want to do. I want to get back to doing like 2 a days and things like that. So,
You can get there.
but anyway, and that's what I think is great about the internet and social and like podcasting and things like that, is that you can kind of connect with people that have a similar mindset, and you're like, oh, you're kind of a nutball too. What do you do to keep this thing on the rails? And they're like, I do this. You're like, cool.
Hey, bioindividuality from an exercise perspective too. There's some people don't have the capacity to do the kind of stuff you do, and a lot of people do. It's find what works.
Well, it's also what you've been doing. Like I mentioned this earlier. Like hypothetically, if I've been doing manual labor since I was 13 consistently. So, and then I've been really doing it every day since I was like 20.
Yeah.
So you build up an engine. And then one of my clients, she was a very active cyclist for a really long time.
Yeah.
And then she was like, I don't have the reflexes anymore, and I just feel like I need to, it's not safe for me to cycle. And she was just getting a little older, still in great shape. And she stopped cycling. And she was like, it was weird because my legs were used to the output. And like, she's like, I just needed to move, like, cause it was ready. My muscles had memory and they wanted to do stuff.
You were that conditioned.
Yeah. So she had to like, she gardens and does art and does all this stuff, but you still need an outlet for it. And if I, one day when I retire from contracting and you just stop doing that manual labor, like that's got to go somewhere. I'm going to go nuts.
Agreed.
So I couldn't just sit behind a desk, doing that or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's a good plan. I love that.
Well, and I will say for your goals, you've asked me like, if I run, do you think like when we go on vacation we could like run together? And I'm like, meh.
Well, eventually, you've got a billion years more running experience under your belt than me. I've got one day.
But like that's in the context of your world. That's kind of what you're thinking as far as like your goal. Like, oh, I would
That
like
would be super cool.
I would like to be able to go on a run with my husband.
Yep.
And and that's what I want to throw out to our listeners too. Like your goals don't have to be I want to run an ultra marathon or I want to, even run a marathon or a 5. You don't have to. It doesn't need to be competitive
or huge.
It doesn't need to be huge. And if you want to go that way, that's totally fine. It could just be like I'd love to be able to keep pace with one of my friends and go on a nice run. That to me is even almost a more sustainable goal because you'll actually do that.
Right.
You're going to go on vacation with me. You're going to live with me for, the rest of our lives, hopefully. Yeah. Things continue. But you know what I mean? It like makes sense in the context of your world. That's a goal that you can kind of sink your teeth into and it like makes sense in the context of your world. And you're like, yes, okay, cool. That being said, I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. That one day done. We'll see what tomorrow looks like. I'm not doing any running today because everything's, take it slow and steady. I don't want to burn myself out.
I'm also super slow right now. So I realistically, if I'm going to get into running shape, I need to be about 20 pounds less of Jeremy.
Oh.
So.
Well, you did the Galena loop in an hour. That's 6 miles in an hour.
Less than an hour. Yeah. But when I was in better shape, I was running that in like under 42 minutes. So, which for those that are runners, that's not fast either. So there's some spindly dudes that smoke me on that loop.
That's all right.
But anyway, I will, that's why I think depending on how your engine is set up and like, again, what Tim Moyer was saying, like what layers of steel have you folded?
Right.
If you've been active with your hands and then like contracting and physically active for a long time, you're gonna have a better time going into endurance sports than if you've been sedentary for a long time. True. It's just gonna take you a longer amount of time to build up to that. You're someone who you have a lot of endurance. You do a lot of stuff. You're not sitting around a lot, and mentally you have a lot of endurance too. So I think you would actually, I would say when you get to a certain point and it clicks over, and if you don't bail at like that 3-month mark, which Tim always says, like there's a lot of people bail right before they get good enough to kind of have fun.
Yeah.
That
40%
I could easily easily see you getting into longer distances, like even
Really?
even ultra marathons. Yeah, because you're a little crazy. You have that.
That is true. I do lock into stuff.
And when I say crazy, I mean like that nerdy
Obsessive.
reflex of obsession to lock in on things and go deep.
Yeah.
And running is one of those things. It's the same guys that do ultra marathons are the same type of guys that go really deep in martial arts.
Yeah.
They're the same person. So, but I always feel like even when I competed in the ultra marathon, I was much more comfortable competing in that. Because like one, it's a group of really fun freaks that do that stuff. And two, like it's just running. So like no one's trying to choke me out or punch me in the face. So
that is different.
And that's kind of like, well, if I'm going to be competitive in something, this is something that I think
it's at least a little safer.
I'm a good like long slow athlete.
Yeah.
So for me, that super long distance is it's more compatible with my pace.
Right.
So if I can keep a 7-minute pace, which is like when I get my better pace down, and I can maintain that for like 50 miles or something.
Yeah, that'd be pretty amazing.
That'd be pretty awesome. So
very cool. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. We'll check in with y'all listeners in 3 months, see how it's going.
But I would say for you, and people that are on ramping that may have a similar background to Serena, you can start with walking, like really fast, like just walk and then start picking it up a little bit and get your times down, like time yourself. And I see a lot of people when I'm walking around or when I'm running around Peace Valley Park where they are supposedly exercising, but they're like on their phone or they're like holding the phone out and talking to someone. If you're just out there to just do that, that's totally fine. But if you're really trying to progress to the point where you want to run, kind of getting better.
Maybe that's where they're getting started. You know what I mean? Like I took Gus with me. I didn't want to run by myself, strapped him around my waist, and he ran with me. It was great.
He's going to have no problem.
He's going to love it. But like whatever gets you out there and gets you moving, that's for me. I have a tendency to kind of like want to go all in and go crazy. And that's why I was doing yoga every day, for 3 hours. And that's a lot. But I'm trying to be more sustainable and begin building the skills properly to have running be a sustainable option, because I don't want to deal with major injuries if I don't have to.
Yeah.
And if you're doing well, and now accidents can always happen, but if you're really careful with your form and you're really careful with how you're training and you build up slowly, instead of running, I could have gone way more than 0.4 miles yesterday. I was not anywhere near tired or winded, but I said, no, first time, take it easy and start slow. It's okay. You build up gradually.
Yeah, and you build up gradually. And another piece to sustainability, at least for me, is progression. If you don't have a sense of progression, then the activity can lose a little bit of its appeal.
Right.
Unless you're like, you know what? I just like it. I don't mind keeping the same pace. Because eventually you just get into maintenance and you're not really progressing forward as far as like your time and speed and things like that. But, I should actually, my Nathan running belt should be coming in today. So,
how fun is that?
And I have, for running the ultra, when I do a lot of trail running, I have a Solomon kind of backpack.
A hydration pack
that's got bottle holsters and a hydration pack in the back too. And then it's got pockets and stuff for all your knickknacks. But
like keys, your phone.
Yeah, but this time I've got my this Nathan belt. I think I'm pretty pumped about, because that vest is kind of heavy and cumbersome, but the belt, this one should be pretty sweet.
Well, for short distance, when you're not running 40 miles, you just want a thing. It's kind of like a streamlined fanny pack.
Pretty much.
So you can put your keys and your phone right there. So most of people's running clothing does not have pockets.
Yep.
Or pockets that are going to be, you can't put something in it and run without it falling out.
Well, it bounces around.
And it bounces around. So if you can just strap it to you, then you get to, leave your truck, lock it, put your keys in your bag, and ready, set, go.
Yeah, and for me, I've got like the Apple Watch and my AirPods that I use, but it's nice to, because the way the Apple Watch is set up, it'll be really nice to just have my phone with me. So that way, if I want to do a podcast or something, I can just have ready access to that.
Right, because the watch is not like an iPod where you load it directly onto it. Most of you can find a workaround, but it takes a lot of time. So
it's
just
annoying.
Keeping your phone with you is, then it just bounces from the phone. You control it on your watch, but you hear it in your earbuds, no problem.
Yeah, and I think that's another way to, if you, I will say this to you, and we can probably end on something like this. When you try something, if it doesn't resonate with you, like that's okay.
Yeah, you can keep trying new things.
I'm not telling anybody that they should run or exercise in a certain way. I've just found for my brain and my background and all the things that I've done, running is something I enjoy. And if I'm probably in the future going to try and get more competitive with it. And at the very least, if they're still running that race that I didn't finish, I'm going to go do that one day.
Right. And finish it.
And finish it well.
That you would,
So, but
that'd be an interesting thing to do.
that's just like, stuck in my craw a little bit, but I'll knock that out. But,
Yeah, I agree with you though. You want to find something that works for you. I've tried a lot of things, little bits, and I'm like, I don't even, some things I look at and I'm just like, nothing about that appeals to me. Baseball, I will never play baseball. Nothing about that appeals to me.
You would have to do, you starting to play baseball would be so odd at this point in time.
Right? I know. So that's why, like, what?
Baseball. I don't even know where a 29-year-old woman, like, okay, so my wife would like to play baseball. How do I get her started?
And she's never played.
Never
in her
played.
Life.
I guess we go to the batting cages
Right.
first.
So that's where I would never ever do that. But running, I would love to do the trail running thing. That's what I kept thinking about. I was like, no, I've thought about it for months and months and months.
Yeah.
What's something I could key in on and really enjoy and actually really enjoy? And I was like, trail running could be super fun. I would love that.
That was my first time was up at Trexler, and it is a different animal. It is so much more fun.
Yeah,
I think.
No, and I think because when I was a kid, I ran through the woods all the time. I wasn't like I didn't do anything, try having good posture or whatever. I just ran because I was a kid and had fun, and it was amazing. And I think about that, and then I did my tiny little dinky run yesterday, and I was like smiling. I could do this.
Yeah.
I could totally do this and enjoy it. And I never, ever, ever thought that. I have auditory recorded proof that I've said, I will never run. I hate running. This is horrible. And now I'm like, I should not talk so much shit on something I don't have experience with.
Yeah. I've done that a bunch of times.
Yep. So now I've put in my place, swallowed those words, and now I will be more careful with my speech moving forward.
Yeah. It says, my dad says, a lot of times you want to speak in, what is it, absolutes?
Yeah, right. And that's where I have always been so absolute about running. And that was really that big fear of I'll mess up my knees or whatever will happen.
You can.
You can.
For sure can.
But that doesn't have to be this thing that stops you. You just give it a try and do what you need to do to try to prevent that.
Yeah, well, and what I've landed on is I would much rather be an in-shape person with some injuries than a not in-shape person with no injuries.
That's a really good point, too.
So
like
for me, the juice is worth the squeeze. And from a mental standpoint, I'm a much better human if I'm very tired.
Yep.
So, I'm a much better husband if I have been out on a 4 mile or 4 hour trail run or I mean, you've been around me long enough to know.
Yeah, and it's not like you're a bad husband. You just are way more chill.
Yeah.
You've burned off that energy, and then you have like a normal level of human energy.
Yeah.
So like it's easier to interact with. It's great.
Yeah. And I think it's good for everybody. So I guess my takeaway is find something that you're into that's then sustainable. Like another thing I would really like to do is endurance paddleboarding, stand-up paddleboarding, but not a lot of access around here.
Yeah, that's fine. Later, put that on the checklist.
But for for you, if you get to the point where you can hang with me on a run, for sure, and then that's like you could 100% do that.
Yeah.
And then you just find like, okay, well, I want like this type of shoe, or then if we go into trail running, that's super fun because your brain's way more engaged on a trail run because you are looking where your feet are landing.
You have to watch for obstacles.
Because it's not just smooth pavement.
Right.
And a lot of times, you can really zone out on a road run because the surface is so uniform. When you're running in the woods on trail, there's roots and rocks and elevation change and dips, and there's a lot more skill involved. There's a lot more like stimuli, and you're also out in nature, which I think you and I would do really well with.
I totally love that.
Found some good trails, like we could maybe try and go up to like Nakamixon and stuff.
Yeah, that's fun.
I think there's trails around there. So, and that's another thing you could run with Gus with as well out in the woods, which would be a little bit cooler. And then yeah, man. So there's
lots of good things.
lots of different ways to do it. It doesn't all have to be super boring. But also, if you start running and like you get into it and you're like, this sucks.
And if I hate it, okay, I
Yeah,
know.
do
At least I can speak from experience, saying it's not for me.
At least you can do something else.
Yeah.
Find something else that resonates, and But I would rather try something and be like, this sucks, and then cross it off the list,
Yep.
and then move on to the next thing. Because even if you fail, or you just you wasted some money on gear,
Yeah.
at least now you know it's not for you, and you can move on to something else.
Yep.
So
It's pretty cool.
yeah. Anything else you want to touch on?
I think
Sweetness?
this was great. It
Sweet.
was a good show.
Sweet. Cool. I don't know if we should maybe this would be interesting
Okay.
if you continue down running,
Yeah.
like later, maybe we'll talk
Yeah.
like a year from now or something,
Ooh.
and talk about race nutrition.
Oh, that would be a good one. We can totally do that. I'll get a little more personal experience. I love speaking from experience that way. So
Because
that would be really fun.
There's some eating habits that are horrific in the distance
Yeah.
community as far as like the amount of sugar.
Yeah, we'll get into
I'll
that
take-
later. We're going to keep going on if we keep talking about that. But that's a great prospect for a podcast a year from now.
It would also be good to talk about hydration.
Yes.
And I would love to see where you land in your shoe game,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm gonna get down to 0 drop shoes, I think, as well.
Well, you started off with not being in 0 drop. That's why I said I'm going to start here and see what I want to do.
That was my problem. Well, not that I don't have other problems, but because I got used to running a lot in more of a traditional running shoe, I'm still kind of in that in between zone. I don't like something that's super constructed, but it's and what I mean by constructed is like how stiff the sole is, how much actual shoe is there,
Right.
like how the weight of the shoe. So I like lightweight shoes that are pretty wide. I have really big feet, and then because I don't wear a lot of tight shoes, my feet have spread out. They're really wide.
Yeah,
So,
which is great
but that's a lot of the 0 drop shoes have really wide toe boxes, which
for
is,
that reason.
yeah,
It's perfect.
for that exact reason.
I am going to add one last thing here
Sure.
at the end, and
Add it up.
I don't know if I want this to be recorded, but I'm totally going to say it anyway. When I got back from this run yesterday, my little dinky 0.4 mile run, more like a brisk walk, jog thing,
Yeah.
I was smiling to myself, and I kind of had this little feeling in my head, the same feeling I had when I started vlogging, which was, ooh, I really like this. I think I could see this going somewhere. And for years I've said, I want to do a vlog. And now I'm getting really into it, upgrading my equipment, doing some super fun specific videos. It's no longer just a general vlog following me through my GAPS experience. It's becoming more specific, but I had basically the same feeling, like, ooh, I think I found something that I like here. I know it's really too soon to tell, but I just wanted to throw that out there here, ending.
You should vlog your progress with running.
Yeah, I'm going to. I did my first video of it too. It's
Nice.
coming up. I'm
Nice.
stocking up some videos to drop them during the week, so I don't have to do videos every single day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought I will share that with y'all listening, and maybe it'll be an interesting thing to catch up on here and there throughout the show.
Well, of the things you have engaged with, it lines up, which is why I recommended it to you.
Yeah, it's true.
So, cool. All right, sweetie. Well, I'm very interested to see where
Yeah,
you
me
end up
too.
with that.
Me too.
And yeah, we will keep you guys posted. Anything else?
No, we're good.
Cool. All right, we'll see you guys in the outro. There you go, folks. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you guys, got some good info out of that about
yeah, it
running.
was a fun show. Thanks so much for listening, everybody.
Yeah. And if you guys are looking for the show notes, you can hit us up at thepainterandthepixie.com. Those you usually have the best, most complete show notes with all the hyperlinks and everything there. For show updates and fun little tidbits, you can follow us on Instagram at thepainterandthepixie.
Yep.
And also, if you want to see Serina, you can see her vlog.
Yes, my running progress will be posted on my YouTube channel, Serina Vassar.
Serina Vassar.
Yep.
And
I'll
also,
link that for you.
also Serina Vassar on Instagram.
I'm Serina Vassar on Instagram. Yep. I'll be
And,
posting some things pretty regularly there. Keep myself accountable and letting y'all know how I feel about this whole running thing.
Yeah. So we'll have some more updates as kind of we move along through this journey as well. And yeah, do we have anything else coming up?
No, I think that's all for now.
Cool. I got some stuff coming up for the show, but we'll talk about that
we'll
later.
talk about that later. Talk about that next time.
We'll leave them in rapt anticipation.
Yeah, right? We have some fun episodes planned. That's what it's about, guys.
Yeah, good stuff. Alrighty, folks. Well, relax, be kind to one another. Hope you all have a most pleasant week, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Amazing.